Welcome into the Spiritual Reality Podcast. As most of you who follow the show know, we release new episodes every single Friday at 2 p.m., but we had to get this one out immediately. Obviously, we completely changed what we were going to deal with this week in light of the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk yesterday. At just 31 years old, the devoted husband and father of two was gunned down by a single shot from a sniper to the neck. Charlie was the founder of Turning Point USA, the largest conservative youth movement in the country. He is largely responsible for the conservative trends that we are seeing with Gen Z right now. They have not caught the shooter yet, and so we don't know really all the details about what motivated this person or what their particular reason was. But overall, I can say this: the left hated that Charlie Kirk was willing to go into their sacred territory on college campuses where they have been cranking out leftist-minded students for so long and actually engage in debate, exposing the lies that students were being told. He was raising the other side of the argument, and they couldn't compete with the truth that he was telling. But they also didn't feel like they should have to compete. And that's part of that arrogance that comes with that. This is their territory, and for so long, conservative views have been minimized there, if not shut out altogether. And here he was on their territory, undoing what they were doing. And so Charlie Kirk is a hero. He's a man who truly lived out his Christian faith and boldly shared it with others. And his impact is so immense, and I believe it will continue to go on. But today what we're going to do is we're going to break down what this means for society in general and how we should respond. Let's get to it. All right, well, first of all, I don't think we can discuss this at all without making it clear that this is a big deal for our culture. Somebody may look at this and they may say, hey, he wasn't a politician, he wasn't the president, that kind of thing. Is this really that? But yeah, this is a huge deal. And to use Charlie's own organization's name, this is a turning point, I believe. This is a moment that makes it clear that the left will not tolerate debate. This moment makes that very, very clear. They want to control the media. They want to use Marxist language to brand their political opponents as Nazis and fascists and extremists. And they want to be in control of the narrative. And open debate does not allow for that. And that's what's so amazing about what Charlie did. He took his message directly to the next generation. And they got to meet him. They got to talk to him. He took the time to listen to them, but then he shared the truth with them. And they saw and they realized that all the leftist influences in their lives don't actually want to allow that kind of debate. And they see that the left is working to literally stop free speech. I said that this last election was really about free speech. That's what it was about. We were on the brink of losing free speech in this country. Just a few short years ago, we were starting to see that social media apps were deciding what you could see and what you couldn't see. They were downgrading and deleting users who were saying things that were true but didn't fit their narrative. Government agencies were lying to us about things like Hunter's laptop and going after parents speaking out at school board meetings. And what we're seeing right now in the UK is a perfect example of where the whole world really has been headed, where people are literally regularly arrested for their social media posts. So make no mistake about it, this is an open attack on free speech. The goal is to silence people like Charlie. He had way too many young people listening to him, and it was actually changing the way the next generation thought and voted, and that bothered them. So this is a big deal. This is a direct strike at open and honest debate. And you may not like Charlie's views on everything, but he was willing to go to the places that were most likely opposed to him, and he clearly articulated his views and highlighted the weaknesses of other views. In a context where people were free to push back on his views. And that's a good thing. See, ideas are kind of like science. If they're not allowed to be tested, then we can't know that we're getting the facts right. During COVID, one of the things that people kept saying was just follow the science, as if it's not allowed to be questioned. But science that can't hold up to questions is not science. And the same is true when it comes to ideas. Ideas that you're not you're not allowing them to be put out there and tested and have people raise objections and think through what may or may not be good or bad about those ideas. Those ideas are not good ideas if you're not allowing that. And so the struggle the left has is that everywhere their ideas have been tried, they are a disaster. And so they really don't want debate. This is a momentous moment. So how we react from here, I think literally will shape the future of our country. If you haven't noticed, the left's goal is to create chaos. It's to create fear in order to stop conservatives from making their case. They want us to be afraid to speak out. For years, they used lawfare for that. I don't know if you've really paid attention to that. It's been going on for decades and decades and decades. They sued conservatives in all kinds of situations in order to make conservatives everywhere afraid to say anything. You hear things like, well, if I share my faith in a conversation at work, I could lose my job or I could be sued. People have been saying that for decades because that's the approach that the left took. That strategy continues today, using the legal system to intimidate people who bake cakes, right? And don't want to bake a cake for an event that they don't agree with. There's so many examples of that, of the left using that kind of thing. But now they are more often and regularly using riots and acts of terrorism to make people afraid to speak. So again, we don't know that much about the shooter at this point. But I guarantee this was designed to send a message to anyone else who would like to do what Charlie's doing, that they better not. It was designed to intimidate them into silence. Conservatives always feel that they just need to explain their case better. That's the approach conservatives take, right? The left feels that they need to have control no matter what it takes so they can shut down their opposition. And so they will justify breaking the system, breaking the rules, breaking laws, or even violence under the guise of stopping those radical ideas that they brand radical ideas. They love to paint conservative views and leaders as controversial. You notice the media, every single time they mention somebody who is at all conservative, they say controversial radio host, controversial this, controversial congressman, or they'll brand them as racist or extremist. And really, when our views really as conservatives kind of just mirror what about 80% of the people believed 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, the world is ending if somebody believes those things. The media and leftist politicians, frankly, share responsibility for this. I really believe that. For years now, they've been calling conservatives Nazis, extremists, the greatest threat to democracy in order to justify more and more aggressive behavior toward us. And during the riots of 2020, we heard people justifying our riots and violence because people were oppressed, right? And they were using that Marxist language of oppressed versus oppressor. And the media and politicians continue to use that Marxist language to stir people up to the point that they feel like the only choice they have is to commit some violent act in order to save our country. Yesterday, President Trump said it this way. He said, it's long past time for Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree. Now, here's what you're thinking right away. You're thinking, Jim, both sides do that. But I think if you really pay attention, yes, both sides at times do. But I think if you really pay attention, what you'll see is that most often conservatives debate and talk about how dangerous ideas are. Leftists talk about how dangerous the people on the other side are. And that's a problem. That is a huge problem. It has created a culture of violence. Using violence to stop the spread of truth only kind of reveals that they have no reasonable response to conservative arguments. And more than likely, this is going to spark even more boldness in Gen Z to demand that these ideas are heard. As long as we can protect free speech, I believe more and more people will rise up to say the same things that Charlie Kirk was saying. And so I think that this is a very pivotal moment for us as a nation. Now, you may be familiar with the social media influencer and Virginia House of Delegates member Nick Freitas, and he posted this yesterday on X. It's a little bit long, but I want to read it to you because I think it's really well said. He said, I'm told that as a state representative, this is the moment where I'm supposed to express my heartfelt condolences and then stand in solidarity with those on the other side of the aisle as we condemn political violence and stand as unified as one people. And when I first read that first part, I was like, man, he's like kind of a smart aleck at this moment. He can be kind of sarcastic, no doubt. But I thought, man, like, well, are you not expressing your heartfelt condolences? But he is. But he's making the point that we always talk about, let's stand as one in this moment. And he says, but we're not, right? He says, we aren't one people, are we? The truth is, we haven't been for some time now, and there's really no point in pretending anymore if there ever was. We are two very different peoples. We may occupy the same piece of geography, but that is where the similarities seem to abruptly end. I convinced myself for a long time that whenever the left called me a racist, a bigot, a sexist, a fascist, a threat to democracy, for even the most innocent disagreements, that it was simply hyperbolic rhetoric done for effect. And now the effect is a widow and 2 orphaned children, because the left couldn't bear the thought of a peaceful man debating them and winning. I don't think they realize it yet, but murdering Charlie is going to be remembered as the day where we finally woke up to what this fight really is. It's not a civil dispute among fellow countrymen. See, that's the problem. That's where we used to be. You'd have a couple different parties, and there would be civil disputes among fellow countrymen about what's the best for the country. And he says, no, that's not what it is anymore. He goes on to say it's a war between diametrically opposed worldviews which cannot peacefully coexist with one another. One side will win and one side will lose. And that's part of what I've been trying to say here on this podcast is that people are coming from different worldviews, and to really help Christians understand how often they're getting sucked into an anti-biblical worldview when it comes to these kinds of issues. And so he says, we're coming from two different whole ways of thinking. And if you notice, when you talk about attacks on free speech and things like that, there are people who don't really love the Constitution anymore. They'd like it to go. So that's not even our worldview, so to speak, as a nation anymore. We don't even agree on that. He goes on to say, Charlie tried to win that fight through argumentation, through discussion, through peaceful resolution of differences. And the other side murdered him. Not because he was extreme or inciting violence or any other hyperbolic slur they hurled at him. They murdered him because he was effective, because he was unafraid, because he inspired others and made them feel like they had a voice and that they were not alone. And he did it at the very institutions which have fomented so much hatred towards conservatives. I don't want to stand in solidarity with the other side of the aisle. I want to defeat you. I want to defeat the godless ideology that kills babies in the womb, sterilizes confused children, turns our cities into cesspools of degeneracy and lawlessness, and murdered Charlie Kirk. Social media is aflame right now with leftist celebration of Charlie's death. I wonder if any among them understand what has just happened. If there is a Yamamoto somewhere in their midst warning that all they have done is awoken a sleeping giant. I doubt it, he says. I think they gave up such introspection and self-awareness long ago. I don't know exactly what will happen next. I just know it won't be the same as what has happened in the past. There will be thoughts and prayers. Charlie would have wanted prayers, not for himself, but for those left behind and for the country that he loved. But then there will be a reckoning. My Christian faith requires me to love my enemies and pray for those who curse me. It does not require me to stand idly by in the midst of savagery and barbarism. Quite the opposite. So every time I feel tired, every time I feel discouraged or overwhelmed, I'm going to watch the video of a good man being murdered in Utah. I will force myself to watch it, and then I will return to work destroying the evil ideology responsible for that and so much more. Rest with God, Charlie. Your fight is over. Ours is just beginning. Some really powerful words there by Nick Freitas. So let's kind of wrap up here with how should we as Christians react? Well, first of all, as he alluded to, pray for Charlie's family. Share your faith more boldly. Never stop saying what is right and what's best for our country. Don't be intimidated. We will not be intimidated into silence. Silence at this point is a death sentence for our country and the world that our kids and our grandkids are going to grow up and live in. What happened to Charlie is horrendous, and it's unbelievably tragic that his kids are not going to have him there as they grow up. But if he was killed because he spoke out on issues that are destroying America, the impact that he made that will probably make the world a better place for his kids to grow up in. A much better place than it would be if he had stayed silent. And so we owe it to him to keep telling the truth and ensure that his kids continue to have the kind of world that he wanted for them. And so let's pray for his family, and let's not be intimidated. And second of all, pray for our enemies. This one's tough. Jesus asks us to do hard things, and this is a hard thing. We seriously need to be praying that God will change the hearts and minds of folks who think like this shooter, we need to be praying for that they're going to come to Jesus. We need to pray for opportunities to have spiritual conversations with them that will lead them to Jesus. Without the power of the Holy Spirit bringing revival and hearts being changed by Jesus, we will never be on the same page in this country again. And as much as it's becoming harder and harder to stomach even being around people who call conservatives all these nasty things, or maybe celebrate what happened yesterday. They need Jesus. And as a Christian, you're called to be light to them. So continue loving people well, be in their lives. Don't argue with them, but take opportunities to share what Jesus has done in your life. And then we can't stoop to the same tactics, right? We can't do that. We can push for holding people legally accountable. We should continue to show why the left's ideas are dangerous and bad for culture, but we cannot resort to violence. And so that is something that we just can't step into that. And of course, not that violence is right anyhow, but that the moment that a conservative does something like this, then again, it goes back to Christians are a threat to democracy and that kind of thing and all that. So don't let this tragedy paralyze you. Let it propel you. We still do need to stand up against the wicked and crazy ideas that are driving this country to destruction. But we need to keep working to get the message out. And it's not Christian nationalism to want what God says is best for your country. Okay? Let's just erase that crazy thought. That's not what it is. And so that's my take on this tragic situation. We obviously can't keep going this way as a country where we're solving our political divide by shooting somebody. I hope and pray that even many who aren't conservatives will speak out and encourage people on their side to stop demonizing people who disagree with them and stop acting as if it's okay to use any means necessary to stop their opponents. So thanks so much for listening. Take some time today to pray for Charlie's family, and we will see you next week.